Hello everyone, and welcome to Dead Time Stories. Tonight, the storm outside isn't the only thing brewing. True tales so chilling they'll make your skin crawl, yet so mesmerizing you won't be able to turn away. But here's the twist. That distant thunder isn't just atmosphere. It's the key to unlocking your deepest sleep. So before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. It arrived on a Thursday, tucked inside a plain white envelope with no return address, just a brass key and a note in hurried, leaning script, for the house. It's waiting. Mara turned the key in her palm. It felt warm, as if recently held, and left the faintest metallic scent on her skin. All afternoon she set it down, picked it up again, set it down. By evening she dreamed of a tall, narrow house at the edge of a tree line, its windows reflective as blind eyes, and beneath the floorboards a steady, almost soothing hum. Her phone buzzed her awake at 6:14 a.m. Unknown number. You should come before nightfall. An address followed. She tried to laugh, tried to tell herself it was a marketing stunt, or else a wrong number with theatrical flair. But there was a pressure behind the message, a gravity, as if the sender were nudging her from a dark room. By 3, she drove past the county line, where the radio sank to static and the road narrowed to gravel. The house stood at the rise of a low hill, exactly as in the dream, siding the color of old tea, porch slumping a little at the center, a rocking chair drifting back and forth in absolutely still air. The humming reached her before the threshold, traveling through the soil up her bones, through her ribs, a deep purr like something sleeping. The key fit perfectly. When she turned it, the hum stopped, cleanly, as if someone had lifted a finger from a vibrating glass. Inside, late afternoon light and long, diagonal blades, the odor of cedar and iron, dust motes like suspended pollen. Far back in the house, a door sighed open. "Hello?" she asked, and her voice sounded swallowed, as if the walls were thick with cloth. No answer. But the house had heard her. The hum came back softer, curious, as if it were listening too. She stepped into a foyer trimmed with crumbling crown molding, a staircase angling up like a vertebrae of dark oak. The wallpaper wore a faded pattern of vines and starbursts. On the hall table sat a tarnished bell, a register book, and a willow switch lay neatly as a pen. Someone had once tried to make this place respectable, flowers in water, names in columns, consequences in reach. She brushed the bell with a fingertip. It didn't ring. Instead, the hum deepened, as though the house answered for it. "I'm not staying," she murmured to the empty air, which felt like a promise the house would be happy to test. Mara explored. A dining room with a long table scored with knives. A pantry lined with apothecary jars containing nothing but ghost smells, anise, clove, thunderstorm. In the parlor, a curtained mirror faced the cold fireplace. The mirror wore a muslin shroud, but the fabric had a dark oval rubbed near the center, as if someone frequently pressed a face there. From the kitchen, a drip. Tap, tap, tap. The sink was dry. The sound came from beyond. A door, back hall, another door, narrow, steep steps, then a small cellar room with shelves along one wall and a single chair. The sound came from the far corner, where a pipe pierced the foundation stones. Tap, tap. So steady it was almost a metronome. "Hello?" she said again, foolishly. The tapping paused, then resumed faster, twice as quick, like an eager heartbeat. She returned upstairs, shutting the cellar door with a relief she hated admitting. The hum followed. At the foot of the stairs a draft stroked her hair toward the second floor, where the light was indistinct and colored the way old dishwater gets after scrubbing. She climbed. Halfway up, something changed. The hum was closer. It edged into her blood like a song she almost recognized, childhood adjacent, warm and worrying at once. When she reached the landing, she realized it wasn't the house humming. Or not only the house. It was the hallway itself, the boards singing quietly under tension, like the throat of a thing with secrets lodged in it. 4 doors. 3 were open. A nursery where a mobile hung in still air, moons and hairs cut from tin, A narrow study with chart-littered walls, a bathroom where the tub's enamel had curled from rust like the petal of a dead flower. The fourth door was not only closed, it swelled the way a door swells in summer, snug in its frame, and something about the space before it felt crowded, like a bus aisle when people won't meet your eyes. She laid her hand on the panel. Warm. She held her breath, and the wood exhaled. The faintest give beneath her palm, like the door's grain, was a lump. She snatched her hand away and laughed once, brittle. "You're overtired," she said to herself. She said it again. "Come before nightfall," the text had said. As the sun lowered, the hall dimmed until the grain of the wood dissolved to one continuous, breathing shape. The hum sharpened, too, from cat's purr to tuning fork. She tried the knob. Locked. The key from the envelope didn't fit here. She told herself that was good. Whatever was on the other side, the house wasn't ready to show her. Or maybe it was the other way around. Her phone had no bars, but the flashlight worked. In its beam, she saw scratch marks around the lock, tiny, organized. Not clawed. Etched. Letters. She leaned close. The letters formed a phrase: "If you listen long enough, it will use your voice." Someone had carved each letter with care. The gouges were polished, as if many fingers had traced them. A whisper then, too soft to say whether it came from behind the door or ahead. Mara. Not question. Not command. Statement. Like the way a librarian says your name when she recognizes you but hasn't decided if she likes you. Mara stepped back fast enough to bump the opposite wall, phone beam jittering. "No," she said, to both the door and the memory of her own name spoken like that, and fled back down the stairs. The hum came with her, sympathetic and low, never chasing, just present, like breath. At the foyer table, she opened the register. The pages had browned, edges wavering like shorelines. Names, dates, notes. August Greaves, 1903, brought the boy to see where it happened. Lena Ward, 1905, sang until the floor stopped shaking. SS, 1921, promised to return before winter. The handwriting changed but always slanted a little to the right, like all of them were walking downhill as they wrote. At the bottom of the last page, Mara, no date for the house. It's waiting. The ink had bled slightly, fresh compared to the others. She tested the letters with her fingertip. They were dry. "Okay," she whispered. "All right." She put the register down gently, as if it were a bowl of water she didn't want spilling. She ought to leave. The light outside had turned the color of old apricots. Night would come on fast. But the notion of walking out, of turning her back on the breathing door and the careful letters and the name written without a date, she couldn't. Leaving now meant coming back later just to confirm it had been real, and some part of her already knew. It might not be waiting then. The house had the patience of old grief, but not infinite patience. The parlor's mirror called to her in the small way that dangerous things do. She pulled the muslin veil down. Beneath it, the glass was dark silver, not quite reflective. Her face appeared with a fine delay, as if the mirror had to remember what faces should look like before it could produce one. Behind her, in the reflection, the doorway to the hall looked wider. Another door beyond it, where there hadn't been one. "I see you," she told the mirror's room. The mirror did not fog with her breath. From the kitchen, the tap-tap accelerated to a small run. "Fine, fine," she said, as to a child throwing pebbles at a window. "I'm coming." She didn't notice, not at first, that the register had flipped 2 pages on the table. The room did not stir. The house hummed in a contented chord, as if something had settled into place. She descended the narrow steps again, one hand on the cold wall, the other skimming air as if she could feel the tapping. In the cellar room, the pipe's lip dripped no water at all, yet the tapping continued from its dark mouth. "Hello?" she said, nearer now. It stopped. She leaned closer. A breath from the pipe touched her cheek, warm, sweet, a child's exhale after sleep. "Do you live down there?" she asked before her better mind intervened. A whisper that might have been words. Might have been wind. She strained, and the hum upstairs softened its volume the way a crowd hushes for a solo. The whisper seemed to slide around vowels. Not down, through. Through where? She put her ear near the pipe and heard it then, the sea, somehow, or the memory of it. A long, receding roar braided with a human sound like low singing. On the shelf behind her, glass clinked. She turned. A jar had not been a jar at all, but a bell. When she lifted it by instinct, it rang with a note so soft she felt it more than heard it. The house answered, hum brightening in the timber framed above, as if the bell and house spoke dialects of the same old language. Footsteps creaked overhead. She froze, listening to the careful weight of them, crossing the kitchen, the hall, pausing at the head of the cellar stairs. "I can hear you," she said, feeling ridiculous. The steps paused, then descended 1, 2. Nothing on the stairs. Just the sound of them. 3, 4. The air cooled. A shape never formed. It was all implied, as if an absence had decided to walk like a person. It reached the doorway and did not enter, polite as weather. "If you're real," Mara whispered. "Knock." Silence. Then 2 knuckles on the doorframe, distinct as her name. "Knock. Knock." "Okay," she breathed. "All right. I'm going to." She had meant to say leave, but what came out was, "Listen." The footsteps retreated, soft with satisfaction. The pipe, too, drew a breath, and the tapping resumed at a slower tempo, like it had learned something about her and needed time to think. Night hit the windows all at once, a black satin thrown across panes. In the parlor, she found a matchbook with a hotel logo, the K, Galveston, and lit a pair of candles left in brass cups. The flames shivered high, oddly tall, like dancers on tiptoe. She placed one at the foot of the stairs and one on the hall table beside the register. She checked her phone again. No service, 23% battery. She should have been anxious. Instead, she felt threaded to the house, stitches running through her. She spoke aloud just to hear a human voice. "I'm staying until midnight. That's sensible, isn't it? It's a boundary. We like boundaries." The house's hum hovered just at the edge of hearing, obediently gentle. "Tell me what you want," she said, almost laughing. The candle on the table budded with a tiny moth, which flicked out a flame and landed intact on the page. It crawled across the register to the line with her name, and then stopped as if waiting for her to see. Someone had filled the date, November 12th. Today. Mara watched the numbers until the 7 and 12 looked like a hooked arm. Her throat went dry. "But I didn't write." From upstairs, the breathing door exhaled long and slow. Not a threat. An invitation. She saw herself as if from the ceiling, small, human, a candle-bright dot in a dark geometry of rooms. "Midnight," she told the air again. "And not a minute more." She took the candle and climbed. At the locked door, she pressed the warm brass cup to the panel, and the breathing steadied under her hand, like a skittish animal finding a wrist to smell. "If I open you," she whispered, "you'll be kind." She didn't have the right key. But the house did. Within the wall, a tick, a slide, a release. The latch tipped open by itself, slow as moonrise. She turned the knob. The candle flame leaned toward the crack as though curious too. The room smelled of rain that had never fallen. At first glance it was simple. A bed frame without mattress, a narrow wardrobe, a rug woven with a pattern of circles within circles. But every surface carried fine scratches, the same etching hand as the words around the lock. Letters everywhere, layered until they were more texture than script. She raised the candle. The wardrobe door stood ajar. Inside, instead of clothes, hung ribbons of paper, each strip inked with a single sentence. They rustled like leaves when the house breathed. She read at random. "I said I was sorry, but the house wanted me to say it like I meant it. The sea comes through the pipe because it knows the short way. If you say your name into the floor, you wake what's in the wall." "Mara," the room said, in 3 distinct voices that braided into one. 2 were children. One was older, grief smoked. She swallowed. "What are you keeping in here?" The voices didn't answer with words. Instead, the rug's circle seemed to shift. No, not shift. Her attention did. There were small depressions between rings, knee-sized, as if people had knelt here often to listen through the floor. She set the candle on the bed frame and knelt, absurdly obedient. The boards were warm. "Listen long enough," she murmured, finishing the sentence engraved outside. "And it will use your voice." A softer breath at her ear. "Not steal," said the older voice. "Borrow." "What for?" "To call someone who won't come unless you sound like yourself." The hair prickled on her arms. "Who?" But the room had grown shy. The door glided 3 inches closer to closed, a suggestion of privacy. The candle flared high, then steadied. "I'll borrow it back," she said, as if negotiating with a child over a favorite toy. "If it uses mine." The wardrobe's paper strips stirred as if in approval. The floor hummed under her knees like a chord plucked on an unseen instrument. She returned to the parlor, uneasy with the idea of sleep and yet heavy with tiredness. The mirror, uncovered, reflected her in a way that made her want to apologize to herself. A little thinner than she felt, a little lonelier. In the reflection, the hall behind her looked oddly lit, as if a light source she couldn't see had brightened it. "Don't," she told the mirror. "No tricks." Her reflected mouth formed the word a hair late. Then the reflection didn't stop. It said more, though she hadn't. "Don't be afraid," said her reflection, mouth moving with a child's careful care. "We asked for you?" Mara's knees felt unreliable. "Who is we?" "The ones who hum," her reflection said in a voice that was certainly hers and also not. "The ones who learn to talk like the house." Mara touched the glass. Cold. The reflected fingertip touched hers a fraction after, then stayed when she pulled away, as if reluctant to lose the contact. "You can come through," her reflection said, not unkind. "But only if you promise to return. The door opens better for promises." "What's on your side?" she asked. "The same rooms," the reflection said. "But the things you've lost are where they should be." Mara swallowed a laugh that wasn't humor. "That's cruel." "It's not meant cruelly." Her reflection's eyes shone with a wetness that made Mara think of someone holding a bowl under a leak. "It's meant as a mercy you can decline." Behind her, in the real hall, the upstairs door clicked softly, as if confirming that mirrors were not the only options. Mara let her hand fall. "Not tonight," she told the reflection. "I made a rule." "Midnight," it said fondly. "You were always good with rules, even when you were the only one keeping them." "Do I know you?" Mara asked. "Yes," said her reflection. "But you forgot so you could remember the house." The candle by the stair hissed. The mirror dimmed. In the glass, she saw a second Mara step away, like a twin deciding to be kind and give back a body. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Startled, she fumbled it to her ear. "Hello?" At first there was only the soft rush of the pipe sea, and then a woman's voice. "Come before nightfall." The same voice as the text, but older, fraying slightly at the edges. "You did," the voice added, pleased. "Good. Who is this?" Mara asked, pacing the hall because standing still felt like consent to something. "You don't remember yet," the woman said. "That's kind in its way. Listen, do not give the house your apology. It likes apologies more than it should. What does it want me to apologize for?" "That's the trick," the woman said, almost laughing. "Anything. Everything. It collects remorse the way trees collect light. If you must give it something, give it a question instead. Questions don't root as deep." The phone crackled. "Where are you?" Mara asked. "Are you in the mirror? The pipe?" A pause. The hum rose and the house felt suddenly tender, attentive. "I'm where the house keeps people who try to leave during storms," the woman said at last. "I'm not unwell. But the way out is not through the front door. It's through what you've already carried here." "I carried a key," Mara said. "And a story," the woman said. "You think you've got only one, but you have two. Keep the sad one in your mouth." Keep the angry one in your pocket. At midnight, decide which to give away. The call ended. The screen showed no number, no call duration. Just a blank, as if her phone had dreamed a conversation and decided it counted. She stood in the hall, choosing a room as if rooms could be allies. Upstairs, the breathing door waited. Downstairs, the mirror considered her. In the walls, the hum held steady, a throat clearing before the important part. She returned to the room of kept voices. The candle had guttered to a petaled rim around its cup. The wardrobe's paper strips sighed with her entry. I don't want to apologize, she said. If that makes you think you can keep me, I'll give a question. The floor brightened, somehow, without light. Ask, said the older voice. What did this house do before it learned to hum? It listened, the voice replied. It listened until it could speak. Then it taught us to listen too. That's not an answer, Mara said gently. It's the only true one, said the voice, and beneath the words came a feeling of hand over hand, rope pulled through dark, perseverance, patience, the pleasure of small progress. Kneel, it added, not unkind. She did. The boards warmed under her skin. She felt the pulse of the house, and it felt the small frightened animal of her heart, and did not make fun. Borrow my voice, she said. Borrow, not keep. What will you use while we hold it? Asked the house. The other story, she said, thinking of the phone woman, the mirror self, the pipe seat. The angry one? Good, said the house. Anger travels further. Her voice slid away like a ring eased off a finger. No pain, just a cool absence. She inhaled. Her breath still made sound. She spoke. Nothing came. The wardrobe strips shivered all together, like an audience standing to applaud. In the hush after, she heard her own voice from the hall, as if she were already there, already answering a question someone else would ask. Who told you to come? I did, said her voice from the hall, and the hum resolved into a note that felt exactly like a key turning. Mara stood, throat empty where her voice had been. The hall listened like a dog with its head cocked. From the stairwell came the sound of her, answering someone just out of sight. Who told you to come? The not quite there someone asked, gentle as a teacher at roll call. I did, said Mara's borrowed voice, steady, a shade warmer than she would have used. I wrote myself an address in a dream. Mara's fingers tingled. She edged to the landing and peered down. No person. Only the candle throwing a halo on the runner, and the register book breathing its tiny paper breaths. The voice, her voice, continued conversationally. I needed to see if the key was still true. And is it? The unseen asked. True enough to open what I wouldn't, said her voice, and then, almost playfully, will you keep your part? I will if you will, the unseen replied. Mara placed her palm on the rail. What part? She mouthed, though nothing sounded. The house answered with a glance of cold across her wrist, promise. Midnight. The breathing door behind her sighed with sympathy, as if it knew the awkwardness of promises made by versions of a person in different rooms. She turned, ready to bolt for the safety of motion, and saw it, a small circle of salt on the hallway floorboards 3 paces from the door, thin as a wedding ring. In its center, a folded scrap of paper like a fortune cookie slip. She crouched. The salt smelled like the ocean. The paper read, Stand here to speak without owing. Mara stepped into the circle on instinct. The floor hummed just below the threshold of a chord and then settled. Hello? She tried. Her voice came back, quiet, slightly breathier than before, as if it had run to catch up. Hello? She swallowed, relief bright enough to sting. Who set this circle? The wardrobe of paper rustled upstairs, and somewhere between wall studs a child giggled like a bead rolling. The house did, said her returned voice, as if confiding. It likes fair trades better than bad ones. She nodded, grateful and suspicious in equal measure. All right. Let's negotiate. Here are my terms, she said, surprised at how calm she sounded. I keep my voice unless I give it. I sleep if I choose. I leave when I'm ready. The hum rose, considering her mannerly rebellion. And ours, said the older voice from the room beyond the door, resonance bleeding through wood. You listen when listening is due. You answer when asked your name. You touch the glass only if you mean to keep what looks back. Name, Mara repeated, not unkindly. What if I don't like the one I've been using? Then use the one from before, the voice said. Before what? Before forgetting to remember us. Shadows thickened, but not menacingly. The house was gathering its long skirt to sit near her. I'll try, she said. But I won't apologize for not knowing yet. A new voice then, small, precise. Trade a secret, not an apology. Mara looked down the hall, expecting a silhouette. None appeared. All right, she said. A secret. When I was 8, I hid in a church cloakroom and wished the sermon would never end because the preacher's voice sounded like my father when he was kind. The house made a noise like a thumb rubbed along glass, a pleased sound. The breathing door eased wider on its latch, still closed, still private. The mirror in the parlor dulled, respectfully turned away. Now us, said the older voice. A secret. The house learned to hum the day someone taught it that silence could be punishment. Who taught it? Mara asked, the question jumping ahead of her good sense. We did, said the voice, the admission gentle and terrible both. The pipe below exhaled a sea breath. The salt circle cooled around her ankles. On the register table, the moth resumed its patient crawl, as if all negotiations looked the same from its height. The steps came back. Not the ghost absence, but shoes. Leather. A man's tread from a different century, he awaited, toe exact. They climbed from nowhere, reached the landing, and stopped just outside the circle. Good evening, said the tread in a voice Mara didn't recognize. It sounded like boots polished before a scolding. You've done well, getting your voice back. Who are you? She asked, and the circle held her deathless. A keeper of intervals, the voice said. I count between knocks. I separate hum from hush. I make sure the house has measure. He cleared his throat, politely. And I fetch. Fetch what? What's promised? He said. Mara's mouth went dry. I promise midnight. Yes, he agreed, pleasant as a clerk. And midnight arrives faster when watched. May I show you the rooms that help time behave? She hesitated. The circle felt protective, but she couldn't stand there forever, and the invitation wasn't a shove. It was a hand offered from a boat. Can the circle come with me? She asked, half joking. It can, he said and bent. When he straightened, the ring had gathered itself into a salt thread bracelet around her wrist, cool and grainy. Stand in yourself when you need to refuse, he advised. She breathed out. Lead on. He didn't appear, not fully, but the air ahead held his shape, a suggestion of shoulders, a place her eyes avoided because they agreed it was occupied. He moved toward the staircase, and she followed, salt glimmering on her skin like frost. He led her past the nursery to a door she thought was only a linen cupboard. Inside, a narrow room of shelves holding glass domes, each covering a small scene the size of a saucer. In one, a candle burned without melting. In another, dust fell upward. In a third, a child's jump rope hovered mid-arc, forever almost striking the floor. These are Time's pets, said the keeper, fond. We keep them so Time won't chew the furniture. Mara crouched beside a dome where rain swam like fish around a tiny porch. A rocking chair rocked within, unattended. What happens if they get out? They get bigger, he said. Has that happened? Of course, he said, almost offended. It's happening now. Every time you look at the mirror, some piece of was or will be wriggles under the door. Is that bad? Badness is a matter of scale and promises, he said. Midnight is an agreement not to let the pets roam. She stood. Are you going to ask me to feed one? No, he said. I'm going to ask which one already has your scent. Mara scanned the shelves and felt a small magnetic tug toward a dome where a notepad lay open to an empty line. A pen hovered above it, an inkter fattening at the nib, refusing to fall. She frowned. I've been here, she said, certain. I've stood right there waiting to write something down and forgot. The keeper's almost shoulders squared. That one is the minute you held between two names. It wandered when you left. If you take it back, you'll remember one of them. Which? He tilted. That's not how minutes behave. She reached for the dome, and time purred, pleased, cautious. I won't open it yet, she said. But I will come back at midnight. Keep your salt on, he advised softly. Time loves wet mouths. They crossed to the room of kept voices. The wardrobe's papers had multiplied. New strips unfurled from the top shelf as if printed by fog. She touched one. If you stand where they stood, you can wear what they said. Another, there's more than one downstairs. Another, thin as a lashing, never say sorry to a mirror. The keeper made a small disapproving sound. They're excitable tonight. Do these belong to the house or to the people? Mara asked. Yes, he said. A strip slid loose and brushed her hand, flirtatious. She read, When you hear your name and it sounds like a question, do not answer. Why not? She asked. Because then the question becomes you, the keeper said. And questions need feeding. And if it sounds like a statement, then it's a memory trying to get the door open, he said, almost tender. Those you may answer. Carefully. The floor swelled warm beneath her feet, a sigh through oak. The older voice spoke from the boards, closer than before. Do you have the angry story? It asked. Mara nodded. I kept it in my pocket like you said. Tell it at midnight, the voice counseled. Not before. Why? Because anger burns cleanest when the night tips its bowl, said the voice. And because we'll need the room that opens then. The keeper clicked his tongue. Hush, he told the floor, like a tutor correcting a favored pupil. Let her arrive. Back downstairs, the parlor mirror had put itself under veil again, the muslin drawn up like clouds over a moon. It's being good, Mara said. The keeper sounded amused. Mirrors are polite until they're hungry. Are you hungry? She asked the veil. It answered by wicking her breath to itself, damp at the center. It sees you, the keeper murmured. It's trying not to look as if it does. Mara slipped the edge of muslin aside. Her reflection stood ready, face careful. You're back, it said, as if they'd agreed on a time. You smell like salt. Borrowed protection, Mara said. Do you approve? It looks nice on you, her reflection said, sincerity warming the words. I liked you better when you kept small things that mattered. Like what? Like names, it said. Like how to leave a door kindly. Mara met her own eyes, a strange aching pride rising. I'm learning again. You are, said the reflection. At midnight you'll be asked. Don't rush the answer for anyone who knocks twice. Twice? Twice means they already tried once and didn't like what the house gave them. The reflection leaned in. Twice means hunger. Mara lowered the veil slowly. Thank you. Come if you decide to check my side. The other her said, voice softened by distance. I won't keep you. I'll only keep the story you won't need anymore. And which story is that? The one where the humming belonged to fear, said the reflection, and the veil fell. She descended to the cellar alone. The keeper did not follow. Perhaps he preferred rooms that didn't sweat. The pipe's mouth blew a pulse, like a whale thinking. She crouched close, salt bracelet cold against the stones. Through, she said softly. You told me you lived through. The pipe answered with a hollow laugh, the kind that comes when someone tells the truth in a way that sounds like a trick. Through and under. Through and over. Take breath like a coin. Spend it how you like. Can you bring messages? She asked. We can bring weather, it said, and sometimes that's the same thing. She thought of the domes of kept minutes, the rocking chair rocking in rain that didn't fall, the pen refusing to drop its ink. Could you bring me a word I forgot? She asked. Just one? Which word? She closed her eyes. The notepaper dome tugged at her mind. The line waiting to be written. The name of the person who told me to come. The pipe inhaled, air rushing in like surf looping backward. That costs. What do you take? The apology you were not going to give. She almost laughed, half admiring the house's unified appetites. No, she said, not unkindly. But I'll trade a question. We do not eat questions, said the pipe. We make them hungry. Different art. A pause. Then, unexpectedly, give a promise then. Small. Something you will keep. Mara thought. I'll stay until midnight, she said. No storms will keep me or chase me out. Even if your name knocks twice? She swallowed. Even then. The pipe was pleased. She could hear the shine in the metal. Then your word is, Lila. The sound came out like a bell rung under water. Lila Ward. She asked. She always asks. The floor thrummed once, a seal stamped. Mara rocked back on her heels, dizzy with gratitude and new concern. Lila Ward. The register had held a Lena Ward, 1905. Close. Close enough to be a cousin in time. Thank you, she whispered to the pipe, and it hummed a modest reply, as if she'd complimented its hat. Upstairs again, the house met her like a cat crossing a room, casual, pretending it hadn't been waiting at the door. She went to the register. The page with her name shone faintly, the moth snug against the date like a punctuation mark. On the line above, Lena Ward, 1905, sang until the floor stopped shaking. She traced it. The ink warmed like skin. Lena, she said, tasting how close it fit to Lila. The house tolerated the difference the way a teacher tolerates a mispronunciation that carries love. The first knock came at the front door, soft, experimental. She turned. The keeper's shape formed at the edge of seeing, a caution sign. One, he said. Who is it? Mara called. A child's voice answered, high and bright. I left my ribbon here. May I fetch it? The words were exact and old-fashioned, like a phrase learned for a recitation. Where did you leave it? Mara asked. On the upstairs floor. The child paused. I tied it around the circle. Mara's wrist prickled where salt lay like a thin frost. You can come in, she said, if you tell me your name first. A long silence. Then the child answered, small. I was told not to. By whom? The same one who told you to come, the child said. Lila. She doesn't like our names said aloud. She says it opens things and she's tired of openings. Mara's chest tightened. Then I will fetch your ribbon and bring it to you after midnight. The child sighed, disappointed but not crushed. All right, they said, with the mournful grace of good children. Footsteps retreated from the porch without ever having arrived. The keeper inclined, approving. You did not rush. Twice means hunger, Mara said. He chuckled, a sound like buttons in a jar. And once means rehearsal. The house's clocks, those that still hung and those that only remembered being clocks, drew breath together. Midnight approached the way rain approaches, a pressure before it dropped. Mara led herself to the time room and stood before the dome with the pen and the patient, empty line. Now? She asked the keeper. No, he said, and for the first time she felt him exhale. She lifted the dome. The air inside had tasted of old ink. It spilled into the room sweet as violets. The pen dropped its tear. The drop caught her wrist. She hissed. It was warmer than blood. The minute unfolded like a paper animal, becoming full-sized as it opened. She was standing at a cheap kitchen counter. A notepad waited. Her phone screen glowed with a number she did not recognize but had answered anyway. A woman's voice, warm but busy, said, Spell it for me? And Mara, pen poised, felt her mind empty in that maddening way a word can empty, the meaning present but the letters gone to seed. She had felt foolish, then strangely angry. Who was she to spell herself out to a stranger? Lila, Mara whispered into the memory. Ward. And like that, the minute finished. The pen dropped the letters. Lila Ward in her own hand, neat and slightly slanted. She saw where she'd written it, on the back of a postcard for a hotel. The K, Galveston. The dome's world folded back into glass. Mara stood in the time room, breathing like she'd climbed stairs. The keeper hummed his pleasure. Good. Names returned tend to bring friends. What friends? Doors, he said simply. The house settled around her like a shawl. She felt the minute tip, the bowl of night spilling into morning's first vowel. Somewhere on the property, a rooster that had never lived here tested its call in a dream. The hum drew long and thin, a bow across wire. The knock came again. Twice. Not at the front door, at the breathing one upstairs. Mara climbed, salt flickering at her wrists like pale fireflies. At the landing, she paused, listening. The second knock had been patient, not frantic. Hunger, maybe? Or determination. She laid her palm on the warm panel. Who calls? She asked, steady. Lila Ward, said the voice on the other side, older than the phone voice, but not by much. I'm asking what I've asked before. What is that? Will you keep what needs keeping? Lila said. So I can take what needs leaving? Mara closed her eyes. I don't know what that means. You will, Lila promised. Open, and let the house borrow you properly. Mara's instinct rose. Yes and no braided so tightly they hummed. Before I open, she said, I have my ask. Speak. You don't get my apology, Mara said. You get my anger or my question. Choose. A pleased breath from the wood. Question, Lila said without delay. Anger burns the wrong bridges. Mara smiled despite herself. Then here, why me? Because you hum, Lila said softly. You always have. And because once, years ago, you stayed in a church cloakroom and wished a voice would never end, and the house heard you promise. Mara stared at the grain, throat working. That was not a promise. It was close enough to dress as one, Lila said. Open now. Keep what needs keeping. I'll take what needs leaving. Then we'll both go where we're meant. Mara looked at her salt bracelet. It sparkled like moonstreaks in a harbor. If I open, she said, I choose which I keep. Yes, said Lila. You choose. The latch sighed, remembering how. The door loosened its breath. Mara turned the knob. The room beyond was not the room she'd seen before, and yet it was. Circles within circles, but drawn on water, the wardrobe, but hung with voices made of steam, the bed frame, but braided from river reeds. In the center stood a woman made of memory and rain, eyes glad and grave. Lila Ward. Hello? Lila said. Let's trade. Lila stood inside the water-drawn room, her dress the color of storm glass, her hair pinned with a tarnished comb that reflected candlelight like a trapped coin. She smelled faintly of rain on brick. You keep the names, she said, and the questions. I'll take the apologies and the minutes that wander. Why would I keep the names? Mara asked. Because names get lost indoors, Lila said. But questions know how to knock. The house eased its hum, approving the shape of their talk. On a reed-braided chair, a small parcel waited, brown paper, blue string. Lila gestured. For you. Mara untied the string. Inside lay 3 objects, a brass whistle with no mouthhole, a flat river stone etched with circles, and a skeleton key whose teeth were all wrong. These don't do anything, Mara said, half smiling. They do when used in this house, Lila said. Whistle when you need silence. Stone when a circle must move. Key when the door insists on being honest. Mara weighed the stone. It warmed in her palm, ring etchings brightening like fish rings under sunlight. And what do you take? Lila's gaze softened. The sorries you've said for nothing. All of them. Mara almost laughed. That's half my life. Yes, Lila said simply, and the room's reeds rustled with what might have been pity. Anger or question? Lila reminded, stepping to the edge of the water room. You promised a question at midnight. Mara thought of the dome, the pen's tear, the postcard from the K. Did you write to me from the hotel in Galveston? Yes, Lila said. A long time ago and also recently. Storms fold places together. The K has good corners for letters that aren't ready. What did your letter say? That I was sorry, Lila said wryly. You see why I need you to keep the names while I take that habit. Mara turned the stone in her hand. What happened here, Lila? What teaches a house to hum? Lila smiled with tired admiration. A better question. Many things. But mostly children, listening hard enough to change wood. And the pipe? Brings the sea when the floor shakes, Lila said. We taught it to breathe for us when the air went bad. She touched the wall, not unlovingly. Some lessons linger. The room swayed, very gently, as if the house were remembering a wave. A third knock, light as fingernails on linen. In the hall beyond, a child's voice. Please? My ribbon? Lila breathed out. That one is a good knocker, she said. We can let them fetch. Mara left the threshold, salt sketching frost on her wrist. At the top stair, a girl stood, not quite visible the way steam is almost a shape. She wore her hair in 2 braids tied with clouds. Miss, the girl said politely. I won't come in if you say not to. What's your name? Mara asked. Etta, she said, after a small struggle, like pulling a boot free of mud. Etta Greaves. August Greaves, 1903, the register had said. Mara felt the resonance click neatly into the house's catalog. Where's your ribbon? Etta pointed toward the breath-door room. She let me borrow a circle. Mara held up the river stone. One like this? Etta perked. Yes. Round, round. It sings when I spin it. Mara glanced at Lila, who nodded once. Go fetch, Mara told Etta gently. Mind the wardrobe. It prints advice that is none of its business. Etta giggled, curtsied to both women with exaggerated ceremony, then darted past, leaving a chill that felt like a window had opened and closed. She knows her name, Lila said approvingly. That keeps children from scattering. And the Greaves? Mara asked. The family who taught the house time, Lila said, though it taught them back. Downstairs, a ledger lay open on the hall table beside the register, a second book Mara hadn't noticed. Its pages were lined with columns labeled asked/kept/left/due. The entries were neat as stitches. Etta Greaves, ribbon circle, kept name, left apology, due, 1 song. Lena/Lila Ward, floor song, kept door, left minute, due, 1 letter returned. Mara skimmed to the bottom. Mara? Kept questions, left sorries, due, storm witness. She touched the ink. It shivered like something living under a pond's skin. I don't want anyone keeping accounts for me, she muttered. Lila's voice came from the stair. Then you keep them yourself. The house only writes what it's given. Mara plucked a pen from the inkwell. The nib looked new despite the century. On her line, she wrote, asked, why me? Kept names. Left, needless apologies. Due, I decide. The ink dried instantly, authority baked in. The hum brightened. Good, Lila said softly. Now it owes you nothing you didn't mean. A draft ran through, raising pins along Mara's arms. From somewhere not far, parlor or nursery, a murmuring started, overlapping voices trying to harmonize and failing. The wardrobe's paper hissed with sudden advice. Do not let everyone talk at once. The house will think it's a storm. Mara lifted the brass whistle. No mouthhole, she said, remembering Lila's warning. How? Hold it at your throat, Lila instructed. Think of the quiet you like best. Mara pressed cold brass beneath her jaw and thought of the bakery at 4 a.m. Ovens low, dough rising, the city's noises not yet awake, only the small puffs of air when rolls are slashed and ease apart. The whistle warmed. A soft pressure pushed outward, kind as a hand smoothing bedsheets. The murmuring thinned to one voice, then none. Even the pipe below respected the hush. Useful, Mara said, surprised to feel tears at the edges of such peace. Careful, Lila warned. Silence is habit forming. I won't give it an apology either. Mara said, wiping her cheek with the heel of her hand. The parlor mirror's veil stirred. Without lifting it, Mara felt the other her draw close, as if the glass could lean. You kept the names, her reflection said, voice muffled but warm. I felt them tighten like knots. Mara rested her palm on the muslin. Can you tell me something I don't yet know? Yes, the reflection said. But it will sound like something you knew and misplaced. Try me. You left the apartment above the bakery without locking your window, the reflection said, apologetic. You were thinking of keys. But not that one. Mara huffed a laugh. The practicalness steadied her. Noted. And one more, the reflection added. When the storm comes, and it will, don't stand under the doorframe. The house has better places to be a threshold. Where? You'll see it, her other said. It looks like a circle that decides to be a door. Back in the hall, Etta stood with her ribbon, a pale ring of woven thread with the circle's pattern stitched in tiny white. She looked proud and also guilty, the way children do when they've successfully returned what wasn't exactly theirs. Thank you, Etta said formally, and then stage whispered. I didn't say sorry. Good, Mara said. Sing instead. The ledger says you owe one. Etta grinned, then sang a thin, true line. If the floor shakes, hold my name / if the door breathes, hum the same. The house brightened to it like a plant turning to a window. The salt bracelet glittered. Take this, Mara told the girl, and tapped a grain of salt from her wrist to Etta's ribbon. It flashed and vanished, leaving behind a faint frost. For refusing nicely. Etta beamed so fiercely the stare seemed lighter. I'll bring it back if it gets greedy, she promised, and faded down, leaving the scent of soap and wet wool. Lila watched, smiling with only half her mouth. You've taken to the house like you remembered. Maybe I did, Mara said. Maybe that's the trick. Midnight had tipped, but night still held. The house waited for anger like an audience waiting through the tuning. Mara felt it gathered, the story she'd kept in her pocket since the phone call, a collection of small injustices welded into something with a handle. I have it, she told Lila quietly. But you chose the question. I did, Lila said. Keep anger for the storm. It runs the generators. What are we powering? Departure, Lila said, and her eyes shone with a sober joy that scared and soothed. If you choose it. The wardrobe's paper slid a new strip like a stage direction. If you leave right, you take what matters. If you leave wrong, you take everything you shouldn't. Mara tucked the angry weight back down. Right then, she murmured. Not wrong. In the upstairs hall, the river stone warmed suddenly, pulling at her palm. She set it on the boards. The etched rings glowed and widened, chalking themselves onto the floor in pale, luminous lines. A circle grew big enough to stand inside, then taller, edges rising like a hoop pulled from water. It wavered, deciding. Door or window? Question or answer? The threshold, Lila said softly. You'll know when. Mara stepped near and felt the air inside the hoop vibrate. Beyond it was the same hall, but the air there smelled of low tide and something electrical. Her reflection's warning chimed, don't stand under a doorframe. Stand in the circle when the storm comes. What if I step through now? Mara asked. You'd find your way, Lila said. But you'd leave me with the apologies, and I am tired of carrying them. Not reproach, only fact, offered like a cup of water. Mara backed away. Then not yet. The hoop sighed and flattened back to a chalked ring, stone dulling to river gray. The pipe exhaled the taste of lightning. Somewhere below the hill, thunder practiced its vowels. In the time room, two of the domes fogged over as if embarrassed. In another, the jump rope lowered, struck the floor, and lay still, as if even pretend children knew to go inside. Lila tilted her head like a bird listening under snow. It's the big kind. What do we do? Mara asked. We let it pass through, Lila said. We show it where. And if it refuses? Then we borrow your anger, Lila said mildly. And we scold weather. A laugh rose in Mara despite the prickle at her scalp. The whistle hung warm against her collarbone. The salt kept its frost. The key with wrong teeth waited for an honest door. She looked at the ledger one more time. Do I decide? The house made a pleased, restrained noise as if it had trained her into a good habit and was too polite to gloat. Ready? Lila asked. As I'll ever be, Mara said. The house drew a long breath, through the pipe, through the mirror, through the tiny seams where floor meets wall. The hum deepened to a note with a backbone. In the distance, thunder answered like a cousin arriving down the lane. Then let's keep what needs keeping, Lila said, and help the rest find its way through. The storm did not arrive all at once. It began as a question in the glass, a faint trembling of reflections. The windows quivered like something breathing behind them. Every candle tilted the same way, flame shoulders bowing. Mara could feel the house deciding whether to brace or to open. Through, not against, Lila murmured. She stood by the parlor mirror, fingertips grazing the muslin. It will want an apology for the noise. Don't give it one. I'll give it a question, Mara said. What happens if the hum stops? Lila smiled, weary pride in her eyes. Then it's listening harder than usual. A thread of wind slid under the door. It smelled of the sea, though the nearest coast lay hours away. The pipe below sang a single pure note, metal praying to metal. Mara's hair lifted from her neck. The whistle against her throat grew cold. Now? She asked. No, Lila said, and the house opened its lungs. The first thunderclap struck like a huge heart finding its rhythm. Windows flashed inward. The hum rose to meet it, matching pitch until the sound became one enormous chord. The whole structure trembled, rafters, rails, marrow. Mara staggered, but Lila caught her elbow. Stand in your circle. The river stone ring flared from the boards, lines bright as lightning drawn in chalk. Mara stepped inside. The air within was dense, pressing but protective, like the inside of a held breath. Don't close your eyes, Lila shouted above the din. You'll miss what chooses you. Something moved through the house then, too quick to see, a ripple of pressure, a shape made from equal parts wind and memory. It passed through walls as if greeting them. Everywhere it went, things remembered what they'd once been. The chandelier burned with its first day's shine, the wallpaper regained its lost color, the register's ink turned wet and new. It's beautiful, Mara whispered. For now, Lila said. When the thunder's rhythm steadied, the wrong-toothed key in Mara's pocket heated, urging her hand. She drew it out. The teeth shifted, aligning themselves like soldiers taking new orders. Honest door? She guessed. End of the hall, Lila said. It only appears when you've earned the question you're too tired to ask. Mara walked. The hall stretched longer than it should, pictures leaning closer to watch. At its end, a door waited, plain wood, but it shimmered faintly, as though varnished with light. Overhead, the hum lowered to a heartbeat. She inserted the key. The lock clicked with relief. Inside lay a small room lined with mirrors, each fogged by a separate breath. On a stool sat the ledger, the same, and yet not. Its title had changed, Ledger of Things That Stay. Mara opened it. The first entry read Sound. The second, Names. The third, Lila Ward, Waiting. Waiting for what? Mara murmured. For release, said Lila behind her. It writes what it wants, not what I do. The pages turned themselves, windlessly. Anger, salt, kind silence, storms that listened. Then blank paper, unending. The smell of ink was sharp enough to sting. It wants you to add one, Lila said. What should stay? Mara asked. Whatever you don't want following you out. She thought. Not fear. That would only rot the place she returned to. Not questions. Those were her compass. She dipped the pen and wrote carefully, Mercy. The ink pulsed once, absorbing the word until it gleamed like wet stone. The mirrors brightened, and in each foggy surface she saw people, Etta twirling her ribbon, the keeper straightening his invisible shoulders, the pipe's mouth exhaling phosphorescent spray. They all looked momentarily free of waiting. Lila exhaled as though unclenching a century. That'll do, she said. The house will hum easier now. Footsteps echoed. The keeper of intervals appeared in his familiar almost shape, bowing from the waist. Accounts balanced. Congratulations. Mara smiled. Does that mean I can leave? Leave, yes. Depart, not yet, he said. Departure requires a witness. The storm? She asked. He inclined his invisible head. It keeps receipts. A thunder flash strobed the room. For an instant his outline solidified. Tall, elegant, eyes like blank clocks. When it quiets, follow the hum down. It will show you where to stand. He turned to Lila. You'll rest? For a while, she said softly. Until someone else writes sorry too often. He bowed again, to both women, then unmade himself gently, like a crease smoothing out a fabric. The storm's fury rolled away into distance, leaving rain soft as breath. Water threaded through the pipe, singing approval. The hum sank back to its usual register, domestic and kind. Through and under, Mara whispered, repeating the pipe's creed. She descended to the cellar one last time. The air was sweet with wet stone. Thank you, she told the pipe. Spend your breath well, it replied. Carry the sea when you miss us. I will. She touched the metal, warm, living. Somewhere inside, a bubble rose and burst like a laugh. Back upstairs, Lila waited at the mirror. The muslin veil had fallen away completely. Their twin reflections met without lag. This is where we say goodnight, Lila said. Mara nodded, throat tight. Will you be here if I come back? I'll be somewhere that remembers this house kindly. Maybe that's the same thing. Before I go, why me, really? Lila's smile deepened lines that hadn't been on her face earlier. Because you were listening even when you pretended not to. Houses like listeners. They embraced. The contact was brief, electric with gratitude. When Mara stepped back, Lila's outline was dissolving into rain light. The river-stone's circle relit itself, patient. Mara stood at its edge. You said leaving right means taking what matters, she murmured. So, names, mercy, questions. The house hummed assent. The salt bracelet cooled, signaling readiness. Mara stepped inside. The air thickened, sound folded inward. The view beyond the circle shimmered. Her apartment, the bakery's brick wall, morning light. Dough rising somewhere. She looked back once. The hallway glowed faintly, every door ajar. The hum sounded almost like a lullaby. Thank you, she whispered. The circle closed. She woke at her own kitchen table, brass key beside her coffee mug, faint salt crust on her wrist. Outside, the city rain fell steady and familiar. The hum persisted, not from the house but from inside her chest, low, companionable. When she checked her phone, a new message waited, no number. Keep listening. LW. She smiled, half weary, half wondering, and typed back before she could stop herself. Always. The reply arrived instantly. Good. Houses like that. That night, Mara dreamed of the hill again, the porch, the rocking chair moving in still air. But the windows shone with warm lamplight, and inside she could see people talking quietly. Lila, Etta, the keeper, perhaps others she'd never met. The house hummed the way contentment hums, soft and unshowy. When she woke, the sound was still there, a pulse below hearing, the heart note of something both shelter and song. She breathed with it until morning. And the house, wherever it was, breathed back. The first week back, ordinary objects began to sing when Mara touched them. The kettle hissed in a lower register, pitched perfect to the house's remembered hum. The refrigerator thrummed in soft thirds. Even her keyring chimed as if in conversation whenever she set it down. She tried to ignore it, but sound is patient. On Thursday, a customer at the bakery said, "Your counter's vibrating." Mara pressed her palm to the laminate. A faint, familiar purr answered. She smiled as if at a private joke. That night, at her kitchen table, the brass skeleton key, wrong-toothed, honest only in certain rooms, lay quiet as a coin. She rolled it between her fingers. Do you belong here? She asked. The key warmed briefly, then cooled like a creature deciding to nap. Her phone lit with a text from LW. When hum finds you in the world, it's a door asking to be noticed. You don't have to answer every knock. Mara typed, how will I know which one is mine? Reply, it will remember your name before you say it. On Sunday at dawn, the fluorescent lights flickered in the bakery. The room went pale, then warmer, then settled. In the cooler's glass, a shape stood behind Mara, shoulders implied, posture polite. She didn't turn. Morning, she said to the reflection. Intervals keep themselves better when we stretch our legs, said the keeper's familiar almost voice. I've come to count the rise. You can do that from there? Counting doesn't require entry, he said, mildly pleased. It requires attention. You are attentive. Mara sprinkled flour in a thin ring on the steel table. News? Lila rests. The house keeps Mercy close to the ledger's first page. The pipe says the city's drains talk too much. Mara laughed softly. They do. Also, the keeper added, your apartment window is indeed unlocked. She blushed at being so seen, then nodded. I'll fix it. Good. One more interval balanced. The reflection thinned, becoming only light and glass again. The hum in the room lowered content. After lunch, an envelope slid under her door without footsteps. Inside, the Galveston Hotel postcard, the K, now bearing a message where the blank space had been. You returned a minute. Here is a spare. Use it if you need to pause a conversation without lying. L. Attached was a paper-thin disc like clear mica, with a hairline crack through its center. Mara held it up. The room wavered for a heartbeat, then steadied. She sensed how it worked: peel, place on tongue, speak into it, and the minute would fold and hold, like cupping water. She wrote back on the card's edge, thank you. I'll save it for emergencies. She propped the postcard on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tiny crescent roll. It looked ordinary, which felt like the best kind of magic. On the way home from work, she felt a tug at her sleeve. No one stood there, yet the fabric held a pinch as if grabbed by a small, damp hand. Miss? Whispered a voice at knee height. I'm not supposed to be out this far, but sometimes the circles spill. Edda? Mara guessed. A giggle answered, fizzing the air. I wanted to see your street. It smells like rain and toast. Mara leaned toward the invisibility. It's dangerous to wander in a city. Want to help me with a chore, then back you go? Yes. They walked to the corner hardware store. Mara bought a window latch and a small bag of salt. Edda hummed a tune only children and houses know. Back upstairs, Mara fastened the latch, then tapped a single grain from the new bag onto the sill. It flashed, left a frost kiss. Trade? She asked. My ribbon learned a new loop, Edda said, proud. I'll show you next time. A cool brush against Mara's knuckles, child's gratitude, and the air unwrinkled. At a thrift shop the next day, a tall, foxed mirror leaned between a cracked armoire and a row of toasters. Something about its surface felt slightly out of breath. Mara paused. The hum in her chest raised an eyebrow. Careful, she murmured to herself. Not every glass is an invitation. A clerk drifted over. That one's popular, he said, hesitant. People look and then change their mind, like it frowned at them. Mara smiled. Do mirrors frown here? He considered. We've seen stranger. She lifted a corner of the dust sheet. Her reflection appeared with the proper delay. No other her spoke from within. Still, the glass held a familiar patience, as though it would wait 10 years to ask a question. Mara lowered the sheet. Someone else's house, she said gently to the mirror. Thank you for not stealing me. The clerk blinked. So, you don't want delivery? Not today. As she left, the mirror fogged once at its center, the world's smallest bow. That evening, the wrong-toothed key warmed in her pocket as she crossed the pedestrian tunnel under the tracks. The tiled arch hummed a rough chord. Ahead, a maintenance door stood, painted the gray of weather. A hand-lettered sign, Do not open, door sticks. That's not the same as don't. Mara said to no one, and slid the key into the lock, feeling foolish and certain at once. The teeth rearranged with a delicate clatter. The bolt clicked without resistance. She eased the door. Behind it, not a broom closet, but a clean, square space the size of a confession. Its far wall bore a chalk circle like a tide mark. The air smelled faintly of cedar and iron. The hum inside her answered with recognition. "Hello?" she whispered. From the chalk ring, a very soft voice replied, younger than Etta by a few years. "Is this the right kind of quiet?" Mara stood taller without meaning to. "Yes. You're safe. What's your name?" A pause. "Jonah. Jonah," she repeated, letting the name ring like a pebble dropped into water. "Do you want to go home?" "Soon," he said. "I'm practicing not apologizing to walls." Mara stepped inside, closed the door most of the way. "Who taught you to hide here?" "The tunnel does," Jonah said matter-of-factly. "It likes collecting the moments between trains. They're good for keeping." Mara smiled. "Intervals. What's that?" "Counting between knocks," she said. "A friend of mine does it." Jonah's chalk circle trembled, a tiny earthquake of shyness. "I want to be brave," he confessed. "But the loud things make me sorry without thinking." "I know that trick," Mara said. "Here. Hold your name." She took the Galveston postcard from her bag, the spare minute Lila had sent. She didn't peel the disc, only pressed the card, Lila Ward shining faintly against the chalk ring. "If you feel sorry trying to climb into your mouth, put your hand here instead. Say Jonah once like you mean it." "Jonah," he tried. His voice steadied. The ring brightened. The hum softened to a purr of approval. "Good," Mara said. "I'll come again, with permission." "Okay," Jonah breathed. "I'll practice not feeding mirrors." Back home, 3 messages waited. One from LW. "You found a cousin door. Be gentle, they frighten easily." Another from a number labeled unknown. "Do not teach apologies to multiply." She recognized the tone, the house itself, writing in statements as only old things can. The third was a photo, grainy, sepia-toned, of the house's upstairs hall. In it, a circle of light hovered where the river stone once drew lines. The caption, "We kept your place." Mara replied to Lila, "There's a boy named Jonah under the tracks." Lila, "Intervals will watch him if you ask." Mara to the house, "Understood. I'll feed questions instead." To Etta, "Teach me your loop when I visit." Her phone purred, barely a vibration, more a recognition. Outside, rain began again, polite on the glass. 2 mornings later, she woke to silence so exact it felt like a trick. The refrigerator was only a machine. The pipes only carried water. Her chest, where the memory hum had nested since the hill, was still as an empty bowl. Mara sat very straight. "Listening harder," she whispered, recalling Lila's answer to her question. She went to work anyway, cautious with her steps, as if she were carrying an invisible cup. The bakery sounded like a bakery, ovens cycling, timers bleeding, the subtle squeal of the espresso wand. No undertone. No chord. She waited. At 10, a delivery driver leaned on the counter and said, "You okay? You look like someone took your favorite song." "That's remarkably close," she said. He grinned. "I'm a poet on weekends." At noon the silence wavered. At 1 it cracked. At 1:07 the hum returned like tide, small at first, then steady, as if relieved to have found her again. She exhaled. On her phone, a single line from LW. "Good. Now you know you can survive both." That evening, thunderheads stacked above the river like folded maps. The city tasted metallic. Mara walked to the pedestrian tunnel with a bag of bakery ends and a pocketed salt pinch. She unlocked the gray door and stepped into the square room. The chalk ring waited, brighter than before. "Jonah?" she called. A whisper. "Here." He sounded proud. "I didn't apologize to the train." I'm proud too, Mara said. She tore a heel of bread, set it on a clean corner. This is for intervals. A second voice, a dry, buttony amusement, floated from the tiles. Accepted, said the keeper, unseen but present. And counted. Mara touched the ring. The chalk smudged onto her fingertip like moon dust. She felt the moment widen, the room stretching to hold something larger than itself. The storm spoke in long baritone sentences overhead. Through, not against, she told the small square, and the square answered by humming, very softly, the exact note the Hill House had taught her to love. On Wednesday, Mara ducked into the old public library to wait out a sudden rain. The building had lungs. You could feel them when the revolving doors sighed people in and out. In the stacks, the hum braided with the faint throb of HVAC, making a chord like patience. She trailed a finger along the spines and felt a prickle at architecture of thresholds. The book trembled. She opened to a plate, a photograph of a round stone set into a farmhouse floor. A listening circle. Marginalia in tight, slanted hand read, "If you stand here, the house hears you better than you hear yourself." She smiled. "Old friend," she whispered to the page. At the end of the aisle, someone turned another page at the same time, echoing her. She peeked around. No one. But the chair at the study table rocked once, as if just vacated. On the table, a child's paper crane perched on the corner of a map. Its folded wing carried a word in pencil, through. Mara left the book as she found it, propped the crane on the shelf cap, and bowed back when the library bowed first. Quiet buildings recognize their own. In a downtown office tower she rarely entered, an elevator door opened before she pressed the button. Inside, the panel lights glowed 10, 9, 8 in a lazy countdown. "I'm going up," Mara told it. The hum in her chest shifted. The car shivered once, pleased. The doors shut. Instead of rising, the car stilled like a held note. A number blinked between floors, and then the doors eased open onto a hallway she did not know. It smelled like lemon oil and old receipts. At the far end, a mirror with its own small weather inside. Fog spiraled counterclockwise, a barometer's dream. "Not today," she told it gently, and touched her salt bracelet. The fog held, obedient. The elevator waited, patient as a cat by a door it could open but won't. "Thank you for offering," Mara said into the humming air. The doors closed, the digits counted forward properly, and the elevator returned her to the lobby as if nothing had happened. A guard nodded. "That lifts a sweetheart," he said. "If you talk nice." At the tunnel room, the chalk circle had thickened, as though fed. Jonah's voice came bright from the ring. "I learned to bounce my name off the wall and catch it." "Show me," Mara said. "Jonah," he said, once, with intent. The chalk flared and the sound struck the tiles, softened, and slid back into the circle like a ball into a hoop. "If I catch it, I don't have to say sorry for breathing too loud." Mara knelt, delighted. "Who taught you?" "The tunnel did," he said. "And also a lady in a picture who said Lila like it was a cup." "That tracks," Mara murmured. She laid a tiny paper cup, bakery sample size, on the floor. "For catching names when your hands are busy." The keeper's voice clicked from the grout. "Intervals approve of accessories." Mara grinned at the air. "Thank you for your oversight." "Counted," came the comfortable reply. A corner newsstand sold 3-day-old tabloids and a handful of postcards. The proprietor, a woman with coin-gray eyes, slid a card toward Mara without looking up. It showed a private garden gate, iron worked into circles. On the back, in block letters, "Your house, Mrs. ITS Mirror." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Do houses send you gossip?" "They send me change," the woman said, ringing up gum that Mara had not bought. "I translate." "What do I owe?" "Questions," the woman said. "Ask one out loud and leave it here. Someone will spend it better." Mara considered. "What song did the floor learn first?" The woman smiled, satisfied. "Now we'll see." She handed over the card. "No charge," then tapped the tip jar, "Not apologies" scrawled on masking tape. Mara dropped a quarter in anyway. The jar hummed thank you in the key of worn brass. Missing her train, Mara took the crosstown night bus. Its windows wore faint curtains in the glass, patterns of lace that appeared only when the route turned under certain street lamps. Passengers stared ahead, each holding their private weather. At the back, a girl of about 12 traced circles on the fogged pane and whispered a rhyme too soft to memorize. The bus itself kept time, tires thudding over seams at intervals that felt counted, curated. Halfway across the river, the driver spoke without turning. "You're carrying a door," she said mildly. "Just a hoop," Mara replied. "That's what I said," the driver answered. "When it opens, don't forget you can aim." "Aim? Doors don't always stay still," the driver said. "They like to swing at something. If yours swings at sorry, you'll get drenched. Swing it at mercy, you'll get home dry." Mara laughed, a quiet, surprised bark. "Thank you." "Fare's paid up," the driver said, and the bus purred assent. On a free afternoon, Mara wandered the small city museum. In a side gallery, a gilt frame held no painting, just varnished canvas, blank and faintly luminous. A card untitled Door, Artist Unknown, c. 1910. She stood a measured distance away. The canvas tightened, a held breath. "Honest door?" she whispered. The wrong-toothed key warmed. A guard leaned in the doorway, hands folded. "It behaves better if you give it a reason," he said quietly. "What reason do doors like?" "Exits," he said. "Or introductions." "Your call." Mara lifted her hand. "Hello? I'm Mara. I am keeping names and questions for a house that hums." The canvas exhaled. A faint circle rippled across the varnish, water without water. Beneath it, a single word appeared, ghostly as chalk dust: "Welcome." The guard smiled without surprise. "See? Introductions." He checked his watch. "Lunch? Doors get peckish at 2. A text arrived at dawn. Storm rested. Going where the floors sing. Back soon. L. Attached, a photo taken from inside the mirror world, the Hill House's parlor, reversed and brighter, a bowl of salt on the mantel like a small moon. Mara replied, "Bring me back a new word." "Borrow this one," came the answer. "Unbruised. Use lightly." She tasted it silently. "Unbruised." The hum took it in, rolled it on its tongue. "Thank you," Mara wrote, and meant it across 2 rooms of reality. Etta found her at the library, tugging at the corner of a map drawer. "Miss, look!" The girl looped her ribbon on the floor in 3 fast motions: circle, circle, figure 8. The loops flared like low lightning, then settled to a soft shine. "It holds longer," Etta said, breathless. "Even when I talk too much." Mara applauded softly. "That's not talking too much. That's practicing weather." Etta grinned. "You talk like Lila." "She talks like herself," Mara said. "We're all borrowing." The map drawer slid open by itself, revealing a blueprint of the library's original floor plan. In the children's room, a penciled circle had been added long ago by a hand that slanted right. A note: "Listen here when rain refuses to start." "Let's." Mara and Etta stood on the drawn circle between varnished tables. The ceiling fans paused, listening. Somewhere in the rafters, a very small shower began, delicate as beads poured into a tin cup. Outside the museum, a man in a tan coat flinched away from a shop window as if his reflection had hissed. He saw Mara watching and laughed, embarrassed. "Can't stand glass that thinks it knows me." "Some of it does," Mara said. "But not all of it means harm." He eyed her wrist. "Salt. You a cook?" "Sometimes," she said. "Me too," he said. "I'm trying to quit apologizing to stoplights." He held up a hand, sheepish. "They seem offended." "Try questions," Mara suggested. "Ask the light what it needs." He considered. "Huh." He lifted his chin toward the sky, breathed, and said, "What do you need?" The crosswalk chirped at once. White figure lit. He startled into a grin. "Well, there you go," He touched the brim of an imaginary hat and went on, less bruised by glass than a minute ago. Back home, the postcard from the Cape pulsed once, a heartbeat through paper. A tiny pocket of time unfolded and sat on the table like a clear coin. The note on the back, in Lila's hand: "You may loan this to one stranger without names. It will return to you after their silence ends." Mara pocketed the coin with the careful reverence one reserves for favors. She made tea, listened to the apartment's small creaks, and felt the hum settle into an evening chair in the corner of the room. "Unbruised," she tried aloud, gently, and the word left no dent. Across the city, Cousin Doris breathed. Somewhere, a mirror practiced not being hungry. In the tunnel, Jonah tapped the chalk and bounced his name back to himself with the competence of a drummer. In the hill house that knew her, a ledger turned a page all by itself, writing, without ink. Mara kept wondering. She smiled. Good. And the night smiled back, every ordinary thing touched with the faintest ring, as if a faraway bell had decided you didn't need to hear it to know it was still ringing. On a rain-slow Saturday, Mara brought a basket to the corner laundromat. The place already sang. Belts whirred in minor thirds, dryers breathed in warm octaves. She fed quarters into a machine, and felt the hum slip under her skin like a friendly cat. At the far end, a toddler pressed both palms to a front-loader door and whispered, "Go around, go around." The clothes obeyed, of course, but also the room did. Conversations looped and returned to their beginnings with no one minding. When her washer hit spin, the porthole foamed to a pale circle. For a heartbeat, it became a hoop, door-like, deciding. Mara touched her salt bracelet. "Stay a window," she murmured. The machine settled, chastened. A woman next to her, nail polished the color of river stones, said, "Your washer listens to you." "Only because I listen to it," Mara replied. "Wish my ex worked like that," the woman said, smiling without teeth. Mara fished a loanable minute from her pocket, waited. "Here," she said softly, "for your next hard conversation. It will give you 60 seconds of whole air." The woman didn't ask questions, just palmed the clear coin like a sacrament. "I'll return it," she promised, and the dryers nodded, lint-trapped saints approving the exchange. On the way out, a snack machine spiral coil held a single folded napkin instead of chips. The hum in Mara's chest raised its eyebrows. She pressed B2 without paying. The napkin unwound and fell. Inside, block letters penciled steady as fence posts. "Do not apologize to your rain. You are made of some of it. L." She chuckled. "Show off," she texted. "Only what the sky lends," Lila replied. "The hill misses your step weights. Edda's loop holds longer. Jonah can bounce 2 names now." "Which 2? "His and yours. He says they echo well." Mara leaned into a column, smiling at the idea of names rowing back and forth in chalk. Outside, drizzle freshened, but she did not say sorry for her umbrella being home. A small city park had been redesigned with circles, pavers and rings, a round bench around an oak, even a circular sandbox. Kids moved like comets around its edge. Mara stood on a bronze disc set flush with the path. "Listening station. Don't worry if it takes a while." The disc warmed, and from underfoot came a braid of voices, not words so much as intention. She heard arguments cooling, dogs learning patience, a pair of grandparents trading the baton of a story without dropping it. On the bench, an old man tapped his cane to the rhythm of the park's breath. "You hear it?" he asked without looking up. "I do. Used to be a square here," he said. "Squares are fine. Circles forgive quicker." Mara bowed her head in agreement. The disc thrummed like a bell under river water. Back at the library, the children's desk held a sign, weather check UTS with index cards beneath, fog, light, respectful, sunbeam, borrow, return by dusk, gentle thunder, library use only. The librarian, a spare woman with careful eyebrows, stamped an invisible book. "Need anything particular?" "Something for someone practicing not to apologize for taking up space," Mara said. The librarian considered the ceiling. A breeze that makes curtains behave themselves," She slid across a card marked crosswind. Due back when the room stops being shy. Mara signed for Jonah. The stamp thumped. The card smelled like cool hallways. She tucked it in her pocket like a promise. The tunnel room glowed more confidently. Watch, Jonah said. Jonah, Mara, Jonah. His name bounced out and back. Hers followed, neatly braided. The chalk ring pulsed like a small lighthouse. Crossvent, Mara announced, and waved the card. A hushed laugh rolled along the tiles, and a timid breeze threaded the square room, lifting heat and leaving room for breath. Feels like the day after a fever, Jonah said, wise. Keep that metaphor, the keeper advised from the grout. It will pay dividends. Is that like cookies? Jonah asked. In the long run, said the keeper. Yes. Climbing her apartment stairs, Mara stroked the banister, and it counted her softly, 1, 2, 3, like a parent keeping tally of steps to ensure a child arrives. At the landing, it sighed relieved. You've been listening to the wrong crowd, she told the wood kindly, and patted its newel post. We don't always need numbers. The grain relaxed somehow. The building hummed a little more like home and a little less like a ledger. A weekend flea market sprawled under an overpass. Tables of almost right objects, teacups missing mates, picture frames with the wrong people's faces still inside, a brass bell with a crack that made it sing sweeter. A stall of keys drew her. The seller, freckles like cinnamon on milk, said, Looking for a lock you haven't met yet? Maybe. She sifted until her fingers found a key the color of rainwater. Its teeth formed a spiral, useless in a human lock. Still, the honest door key in her pocket throbbed with cousin recognition. How much? Ask me a yes/no question, the seller said. If the key turns, it's free. Mara held the spiral key. Are there more children under the city who need circles? The key twisted once, gentle as a wrist stretch. The seller smiled, already having known. Then it's yours. She walked to the old iron bridge at dusk. The river carried a bruised green light. She rested both palms on the rail and listened. The bridge listened back. What should I do with a spare circle? She asked. The answer came as vibration through metal, a pattern she knew well now, place where people pause but don't linger. Give them a reason to breathe once more than they planned. Like here, she said. The bridge made a proud, rusted creak that meant yes. She pressed the spiral key against the spot where flaking paint made a ring shape. The metal warmed. A hairline brightness traced a circle no one would see unless they needed to. Unbruise, she whispered to the river. It carried the word without spilling it. That night, sleep kept opening its hands and letting her slip through. She rose, brewed tea. On her table lay a scrap of cream paper. She folded it absently into a simple moon boat, the way children do. When she set it down, it wobbled and began to glide in the thin puddle of light on the tabletop. The moon boat carried a tiny passenger, no larger than a fingernail, a figure shaped of shadow and shine. It bowed. Errand? She asked. It nodded and turned itself toward the postcard from the quay. The paper boat kissed the card's edge. A wet ink dot appeared like a star. Then the passenger bowed again and collapsed into ordinary shadow. The boat sagged into paper. Her phone chimed. We still send couriers. Thank you for the harbor. L. Mara smiled into her cup, warmed by the idea that even letters need safe lanes. On Monday, the crosswalk at 3rd and Alder whispered, No, before the light changed. Pedestrians didn't notice. The hum braided with the city's noise too well. A man with a briefcase hesitated anyway. He looked at Mara the way strangers sometimes do when they recognize the shape of permission on another face. Tell it a question, she suggested. He cleared his throat. Will my mother forgive me for selling the house? The little chirper hung back a beat, then burst green with an almost tender insistence. They crossed. On the far curb, he blinked hard. Huh. Send the answer a thank you when it arrives, Mara said. How? Leave a circle where you grew up. Chalk, coins, marbles, anything round. Stand in it and say her name once like you mean it. Then listen. He nodded, heavy but hopelit. I can try that. Trying is the right hum, she said. Traffic rolled on, ordinary as bread rising, while the city remembered, in small, usable pieces, how to be a house. The forecast said clear, but the city wore thunder the way a person wears a secret. Mara woke to a metallic taste, the kind that means the air is choosing sides. The hum in her chest sharpened, not louder, just thinner, tensile, like wire drawn through a ring. At the sink she let the water run and heard underneath it a rhythmic breath not hers. I hear you, she told the pipes, and the sound behaved. On the way to work she crossed the bridge with her hidden circle. It glowed so faintly she might have imagined it. A man leaned over the rail, phone to ear, nodding as if the river were persuading him of something. Aim the door at mercy, Mara murmured, and the circle brightened a hair, a friendly pupil opening. Near the bakery a mirror in a salon window rippled once, as if swallowing. She paused. The ripple didn't come again. Still, the old instinct rose, that specific apology the body makes to glass. She stopped it with a question. What do you need? The mirror fogged and wrote room with its breath. Same, she said, and went inside to start the ovens. By 10 a silence crouched under the machines, patient as a cat. A delivery slip fluttered off the counter without draft and landed face down. On its back, in block letters, Midnight doesn't own the door. She turned the slip over. Blank. The message had been for her hand, not her eyes. Outside, clouds pretended not to gather. At noon her phone rang from a number labeled Mara Other. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. Her voice, older by a winter, said, Don't barter with grief. It doesn't spend right. Noted, Mara said, trying to make light. Am I well over there? You're precise, the other said. You stop letting the house draft your sentences. Does it try? Only when you're tired, the voice said, fond. Listen, the circle on the bridge is going to open for someone who will ask you to keep something heavy. Say yes, but tilde it. Keep the name, not the object. Whose name? You'll know it because it will knock twice before it breathes. The other Mara hesitated. Also, Lila is walking too far tonight. Remind her she can cut through the glass instead of around it. The call ended like a candle snuffed with fingers. On her screen, no log. On her palm, heat, like she'd been holding a word too long. She exhaled slowly, set a cup of water in the back room as a doorway offering, and told the flower bins. No sorrow trades today. The bins were indifferent, but the hum approved. After close she took the tunnel route. Thunderheads were theater flats, stacked translucent, rehearsing. The gray door opened easily, the chalk circle wider than chalk should be. Jonah? I'm here. The boy's voice had gained a half-inch of height, pride trying to hide inside it. Crossvent worked. The trains sound like whales now, not wolves. Whales can be loud, Mara said. They sing first, he answered, and the ring pulsed. Miss? A woman came. She knocked wrong, 3 times fast like a ruler on a desk. She asked if I'd seen a minute with her name on it. What did you say? I said I only keep names, he said carefully. And I don't spend strangers. Mara smiled to the tiles. You're a very good shopkeeper. He lowered his voice. She left a ribbon. Not like Etta's, gray. It made my circle tired. A damp weight slid across the floor, a loop of cloth, nearly invisible against concrete except where it drank the room. The hum around it dulled, as if someone had hung a heavy coat on a fragile hook. Mara shook salt onto the ribbon. It hissed softly, steam from a bad idea. Good refusing, she told him. If she returns, tell her to ask a question instead of leaving her weather. What question? The kind she doesn't want to hear herself answer. The ribbon stopped sighing. The circle brightened again. Far above, a staggered bolt lit the seam of the sky. The keeper stepped out of a seam in the tile, shoulders exact. Intervals are thin. Stand where you are when the next loud arrives. When? Mara asked. Soon enough that preparing beats guessing. He regarded the gray ribbon with distaste. People will try to pay you with fatigue. Decline. I did, Jonah said, small but fierce. I kept my name full. Good lad. The keeper turned to Mara. Your bridge will host a bargain shortly. Bring only questions. Leave every apology at home with a glass of water on top of it. Mara nodded. The keeper softened, polite as dusk. Also, if you must shout, whistle first. He tapped his throat and went seam-wise again, folding into grout like a letter into its envelope. The train above groaned and passed. The circle rang once, clear as a coin struck true. Mara squeezed Jonah's chalk-dusted hand, a kiss pressed to air. I'll be back tomorrow, she said. You always are, he said, and for the first time it sounded like faith, not relief. Twilight bargained with rooftops. The river took the deal, turned pewter. Mara stood at the bridge's secret circle, palms on cooled iron, brass whistle cold against her throat. A woman stopped 5 paces away, coiled into a neatness that read like a scold, hair pinned too tight, mouth set as if swallowing coins. Excuse me, the woman said. Is this where the listening is? Sometimes. Mara kept her voice mild. What do you need? A pause. Then knock, knock, from the woman's chest, so soft it could have been bones settling. Twice. Hunger tempering itself. My father's watch, the woman said. I threw it in the river last year to stop time being unkind. I want it back. Names, not objects, Mara said gently. What's his? The woman winced, as if foul work scraped something raw. Tomash. Mara breathed the name once like she meant it. The circle in the rail warmed. The water below lifted in a small column, the size of a hand. The column trembled, the memory of a watch, roundness wanting a wrist. Mara faced it. We keep names, she told the river. We let objects go. The column bowed, drunk down its own image, and subsided. The woman's face rearranged in confusion and anger, and then bewildered relief. I still miss him. Good, Mara said. Missing is a door that opens out, not in. She set her palm against the rail. Say his name once into your coat. Then go home and put bread where you keep photos. The woman obeyed without asking why. As she walked away, the river hummed, a lower kindness. At home the salon window's ripple found her again. In the apartment, the bathroom mirror had fogged itself without steam and was writing, patiently, SOR, as if trying to fill the rest by muscle memory. Mara lifted the muslin she kept now for occasions like this, veiled the glass, and pressed the brass whistle to her throat. She thought of the hush she loved, the bakery at 4 a.m., the world choosing to be gentle. Silence extended, a careful blanket. The mirror's words stalled. SOR faded to dew. Behind the veil, something shifted, disappointed the way a habit is when denied its corner. Here's a trade, Mara whispered. I'll give you a question. What do you look like when you're not hungry? A pause. The veil cooled. Then the mirror, shy, drew a circle on its own damp, small, perfectly round, unbruised by letters. Mara smiled. That's better. Outside, a siren kept its distance out of manners. Her phone lit proud. L. Walk closer next time, Mara typed. Cut through the glass. Trying, came the answer. Tonight the glass is a hill. In the laundromat 2 days later, the woman with Riverstone nail polish dropped a clear coin into Mara's palm. It gave me quiet for exactly 1 minute while I told him I was done apologizing for being tired. He cried. Then he thanked me. I made soup. Mara closed her fingers around the coin. Warmth seeped skin to skin. The minute flattened into paper and slid back into the Galveston postcard, a shy eel returning to its familiar cove. Keep it, the woman said. It comes back whether I keep it or not, Mara said. That's its ethic. The woman laughed. New light worked into her laugh like a seam. Ethical minutes. Imagine. I don't have to, Mara said. They keep me company. She stepped into rain bright as needles and didn't say sorry for existing under it. The bridge's circle shone. The tunnel's chalk gleamed. The house on the hill, somewhere, hummed with a patient expectation, like a choir finding its pitch before the part of the song where the air changes shape. "And I'm listening." Mara told all of it, and all of it answered back, soft, and just a little sharper than before. The bakery's back window had always been drafty. Now it listened. When customers whispered about money or love, the glass picked up the words and stored them in the glare between panes. At closing time, Mara heard them repeat themselves faintly, shy echoes rehearsing their courage. She traced a circle of flour on the sill. "You can listen," she told it, "but you can't keep what isn't yours." The glass shimmered, offended, then settled. "Good," she said. "Keep the hum, not the hurt." The next morning the flour ring had hardened into sugar. Rain again, thin and silver. A man in a coat the color of ash waited beside her. "You ever feel like every building in this town is breathing?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Does it bother you?" "Only when they hold their breath." He nodded, serious. "Mine stopped last week. Apartment above the pawn shop. It just quit. I keep waiting for it to start again." "Try singing near the plumbing," she said. He looked at her sidelong. "You've done that before." "Often." He smiled and boarded the bus, humming already. The bus engine caught the tune. The tunnel's light was thin as tissue. Jonah waved, excited. "Look! It follows right this time." His shadow moved with him, properly attached, except for one moment when it lagged, then caught up, panting. "It gets tired," he said. "Everything that learns does," Mara answered. "Let it rest." She brushed a stripe of chalk between them. The shadow lay down inside it like a cat in a beam of sun. "Better," Jonah whispered. The keeper's voice from the tiles murmured. "Counted." Mail began arriving with no stamps, envelopes sealed with a single fingerprint in soot. Inside each, a word on old paper: stay, listen, ask. The postmark was always now. She saved them in a bowl beside the sink. One night the bowl vibrated, a polite tremor. "Which of you wants to be answered?" she asked. The one marked ask slid an inch forward. She smiled. "Noted." At closing, the radio refused to stop playing. A tune looped, low, wordless, familiar as heartbeat. She realized it was the hill house's hum slowed down to melody. The lyric, when it found one, was hers. "I keep what needs keeping, I let what must go through." She turned the dial. Static formed the next verse. She left it playing. Sometimes ghosts need rehearsal space. The child's handwriting arrived on blue paper. "Dear Miss, I'm learning new shapes. The house says they're polite. I'm trying to teach the rain to spell my name. Love-E." At the bottom, a smudge shaped like a loop. Mara traced it. The paper smelled of cedar and ozone. "Keep practicing," she whispered, and her reply, never written, floated out the open window like a moth. She returned to the flea market near closing. The seller of keys slept in a folding chair. The spiral-toothed key glowed faintly against its chain. "You've used it kindly," murmured the seller without waking. Mara set a coin beside the display. "For your dreaming," she said. The key turned once, satisfied, and the whole table sighed as if exhaling a week of held breath. That night every streetlight flickered in sequence, east to west, a slow eyelid across the skyline. The hum in her chest joined it, pulse for pulse. When the final light blinked out, darkness stood perfectly still for one heartbeat longer than it should have. Then the lamps relit themselves. From somewhere far off, maybe the hill, maybe the sea, came a single clear note, the sound of something remembering its first word. The bathroom veil stirred. Lila stepped through, shoulders dusted with glass light. "You cut through," Mara said. "I practiced on reflections of puddles first," Lila replied. "Smaller bruises." They shared tea in silence until Lila sighed. "The house is quieter now. It's waiting for you to decide whether you're done wandering." "Not yet," Mara said. "Good," Lila said. "It hates abrupt endings." That night Mara dreamed two houses stood facing each other across an invisible river. One hummed the old chord, one waited, learning the tune. Between them a bridge of circles formed, bright as soap bubbles. She walked halfway, paused. From each porch came voices, Jonah, Etta, the keeper, even the baker's machines, calling, through, not against. She woke with the taste of flour and salt, and the knowledge that the world was building cousins faster than she could visit them. Morning found her on the bridge again. The water below carried no reflection, only movement, pure and unbruised. She touched the iron rail. "You still there?" she asked. The metal answered with a hum so low it could have been her own blood. She smiled. "Good. Keep watch." Then she turned toward the city's heartbeat, her own echo folded inside it, and walked on, listening, as every door she passed decided to stay open just a breath longer for whoever came next.